It was still dark when the black sedan pulled up to the main gate of Fort Ravenshade, the fog rolling across the asphalt like a ghostly tide. The guards straightened up immediately, hands tightening on their rifles, eyes scanning the tinted windows. One of them, a young sergeant barely out of his 20s, stepped forward and raised his hand. "Ma'am, you can't enter," he said sharply, his voice steady but uncertain. The woman inside the car slowly rolled down the window, and in that moment, the beam from the guard post light cut across her face, revealing eyes that had seen more battlefields than most men ever would. But they didn't know that. She wore civilian clothes, jeans, a plain jacket, hair tied neatly in a bun. Nothing about her looked like the person who was about to take command of one of the most elite military installations in the country. To the guards, she was just another woman trying to get through a restricted gate. To them, this was procedure. But to her, this was the quiet test before the storm. Colonel Helena Grant had spent 22 years serving her country. From the blistering sands of the Middle East to the frozen outposts of the Arctic, she had led soldiers through hell and back. She had buried friends, carried brothers in arms through smoke and blood, and earned medals that were locked away in drawers she never opened. But despite all that, her return to Fort Ravenshade, her new assignment, felt like walking into enemy territory. This was the same base where her career had almost ended years ago, where whispers had followed her through corridors. A woman in command? She won't last a month. She's only here because of politics. Let's see her handle the Rangers. She remembered every word, every stare, every man who smirked when she spoke. And now she was back, not as a junior officer, not as a second in command, but as the base commander. The irony was cruel and perfect all at once. The guard's tone turned firm again. "Ma'am, this is a restricted area. You'll need authorization or—" He stopped when Helena slowly reached into her jacket pocket and handed him a sealed folder. Inside it was a letter with a single emblem, the golden eagle crest of the Department of Defense. The guard opened it and his face turned pale. He looked back at her, at the document, then at the other guards who now stood frozen. "Permission to enter, Colonel Grant," he stammered, stepping aside. She gave a curt nod, her expression unreadable, and drove through. As the gate swung open behind her, the young guard whispered under his breath, "She's the new commander?" He had no idea that the woman who had just passed him had more scars, seen and unseen, than any soldier on that base. The first day was quiet. Too quiet. The officers lined up in the briefing room, some standing stiffly, others barely concealing their skepticism. Helena's boots echoed against the polished floor as she walked to the front. Her uniform was crisp, the silver eagle insignia on her shoulders gleaming under the lights. She stopped, looked at them, men and women who had served under commanders who never once had to prove their worth because of gender, and said simply, "I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to lead you." The silence that followed was heavy. That week she worked harder than anyone. She reviewed every report, inspected every unit, visited the barracks, spoke to the mechanics, the medics, the cooks, and even the janitorial staff. She ate in the mess hall with enlisted soldiers instead of in the officers' lounge. And when a storm hit the base, she was out there in the rain helping secure the equipment instead of giving orders from her office. Slowly, one by one, people began to see her differently. But it wasn't easy. Some officers still challenged her decisions behind closed doors. Some called her too strict, others whispered that she's just trying to prove something. When one training operation went wrong, a navigation error that left a squad lost for hours in the wilderness, the blame, as always, fell on her shoulders. She didn't argue. She didn't shout. She just fixed it. One night, long after the lights had gone out, Helena sat alone in her office, staring at the old photo on her desk, her father in his uniform, smiling proudly. He had been a decorated officer too, but he never lived to see his daughter reach command. "You told me to never give them a reason to doubt me, Dad," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "But sometimes, I wonder if they ever stopped." The following morning, the base alarm blared. A training exercise had turned into a real emergency. A live fire accident had caused a fuel spill near the hangars. Flames roared, smoke rising into the sky. Panic rippled through the base as soldiers scrambled to control it. Without hesitation, Helena grabbed her gear and ran toward the chaos. "Colonel, you can't go in there," someone shouted. But she didn't stop. Through the smoke and heat, she helped pull a wounded technician out of the hangar, coughing and drenched in sweat. She tore off her jacket and wrapped it around his burned arm, shouting orders with precision and calm that silenced the fear around her. Under her direction, they contained the fire before it reached the munitions depot. When it was over and the last flames died, the soldiers stood around her, covered in soot and disbelief. For the first time, they saw her not as a woman trying to command, but as a commander who led from the front. That night, the same young guard who had once stopped her at the gate approached her quietly. "Ma'am," he said, eyes lowered, "I'm sorry for that day." She smiled faintly. "Don't be, Sergeant. You were just doing your duty, and so was I." Word spread across the base. How Colonel Grant didn't just order people to safety, she went into the fire herself. The respect that had been hesitant, grudging, or distant began to shift. Officers who once questioned her now sought her counsel. Soldiers who barely acknowledged her now stood taller when she passed. Months later, during a ceremony when the Secretary of Defense visited the base, he praised the entire command for its performance under crisis. But when he turned to Helena and said, "You've changed the spirit of this place," she only nodded humbly. Because she knew, true leadership wasn't about medals, applause, or recognition. It was about standing firm when everyone else doubts you, about earning trust not through words but through actions. And as she stood there, looking out at the sea of uniforms before her, men and women who once doubted her, now saluting her, she felt the weight of every struggle, every sleepless night, every whispered insult melt away. Fort Ravenshade was no longer the place where her career had almost ended. It was the place where she had finally become who she was meant to be. If this story touched your heart, if you felt the strength and courage of Colonel Helena Grant, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe to Legends of History. Every story we tell honors the spirit of those who lead with courage, compassion, and resilience. Special request. Before you go, tell us in the comments what leadership means to you. Does courage come from rank or from heart? We'd love to hear your thoughts.